Host A Love. We had a little technical difficulties before, but I did want to start out by telling you to subscribe, which you guys are doing, so thank you for that, but also to make sure you hit the bell. We do different series, relationships, trials, news, anything of that kind, finances. So we do different ones. And if you're interested in just that particular, like say you're just interested in finance, then once you do the notifications will notify you on what shows are posted at what time. And that way you can stick to what you want to do. Otherwise, you can watch any of them. They're all great series and they're very helpful. We do information and news, so it's interesting for information purposes if you want to look at maybe a tech one or something. Otherwise, utilize the playlist on this particular series more than any other ones. You can use them on all of them because realistically they're all built on top of each other. But specifically with finances, because we're working on your mindset first, it is very, very, very important that you use the playlist. Try to watch them in order. Rewatch them. They are designed to be rewatched and watched again and then rewatched. And then we also will have parts of the series later on that will be specified for note taking. But follow along, take as many notes as you need to or can, and that'll help with you being able to actually absorb the information, because sometimes you get it at the time and then you don't remember like a week or so later. Watch it again. But if you're watching in order and you're sort of building on those and you're sort of taking notes when you need to take notes, and you can apply all of these techniques, especially early on, right away. I always try to cover something that you can do right away, because this is information that's new for many people. Some of you already know it and you're learning how to build. You can actually use this information at any level, whether you're whether you're business, whether you're just a regular person getting started, whether you had no financial training at all and you just don't want to repeat the same cycle over and over again. Or if you're in the middle, you kind of know a little bit, but you don't know enough and you're trying to get to the next level. So that's why I say follow the playlist and use these and sort of to change the mindset so that you're receptive to the information that I give you. Having said all of that, so welcome. So I want to also stress that you can leave questions in the comment section. I will answer them. I will start answering them because there's a lot of people that leave questions and we sort of were answering them personally. But I figure if one person has the question, another person has the question. So it'll work for you in doing it in that way as well. Sorry, I'm doing a little check. So today we are talking about if you are poor, if you are broke, if you are starting over, if you've lost a lot of money, do not do these things. And I'm going to tell you what they are. And there's a couple of them because they all sound great. If you are already in financial freedom, some of these things you can do, and I'll let you know which ones. And then if you're not, don't do any of them. Because literally they are designed for people that are already financially I don't want to say secure, but just at a more advanced financial level, I'd say it that way. Okay, so the first thing you should not do is taking free credit cards. The problem with this is when you start getting into the habit of building credit, okay, which is fine if you know how to do that. But let's say you come from a household where people were financially irresponsible, where people were starting over, where people were not literate in or well versed in, not living above their means, because a lot of people do that. So they have all the stuff on the outside that looks nice, but inside their finances are not doing too well. What you do when you get your credit card or you start taking these free credit cards, or I don't want to give any particular names, but there's particular names that are geared towards people that are starting credit or have bad credit or new. One of the worst parts you're going to catch is at high interest rate. Everybody knows if you don't have good credit or if you have bad credit, or maybe everybody doesn't know, that you're going to get that high interest rate. And you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I can build credit. I'll take the high interest rate. That's fine. It is not fine. because in real life, when you take the higher interest rate, you're going to make your payments and they're going to mostly be the interest. They're not going to be on the principal, which means you could be paying double for something you purchased, which in the long run means you have that bill a lot longer. So think of this. Interest equals length of time. If you don't want to look at it as in you're actually paying more for whatever you purchased, maybe you don't care. Maybe you're that much into your finances, you're like, I don't really care. But you will care at how long you're paying on something, which ultimately means you're paying more for like a smaller purchase. So I purchase a television on a credit card if I have that much of a limit. And I've got a 28% interest rate. I want you to do the math on that. Because not only are you paying more, but stretch that out to how long depends on whether or not you just make the minimum payment. Most of the time, if you don't have a lot of financial freedom, because we're trying to get you there before we get you to financial wealth, you're not going to pay more than just the minimum payment. It's going to be all that you can afford at that time. So how long are you going to be paying on that before you can actually pay it off? See, taking yourself longer to get to financial freedom. Okay, so that's definitely one that you just don't want to get in the habit of even starting. Don't even start that. And then the second one is, this goes to financial mindset. This is what I'm trying to get you out of the habit of. Do not, okay, put your bills in someone else's name. The fact that you even have to do that probably means you owe and you didn't pay it. What you do is go back and pay the original bill. What a lot of people that are haven't reached financial freedom, and let alone financial wealth or anything beyond that, is you're not paying your bill. You're not going back to pay what you didn't pay in the first place. If you have to live that lifestyle because maybe at the time you didn't have a good job or you were in college, don't make it a way of living. This is why I don't want you to do this, because you get in the habit of not going back and paying those old bills. You get in the habit of leaving stuff unfinished, and it will come back to catch you. It will come back to haunt you financially. Do you understand? Because you can't really save if you have past due debts. You're saying, oh yeah, I can. I can put money in a savings account and have past due debts, and I don't have to, pay that old cable bill. Well, if you don't pay that old cable bill, guess what else you're not going to pay? You're going to pay other debts that are going to. You may not pay your overdraft account. That small decision goes into larger decisions, right? So you have an overdraft account, you don't pay that, so you go on check systems. Now you're on check systems and you have an old bill that you didn't pay, you put in somebody else's name so you didn't feel like you had to pay it. And then the next time you'll do something else. The car that you get gets hit and you don't want to still owe for that car, so you just don't pay that. This is how you accumulate bad credit, bad debts, bad decisions. And it starts from you thinking that that's okay in the first place. It's okay to put, I didn't pay this bill, that was $200. And I'm going to put, the bill in my, boyfriend's name or mom's name or whomever else's name you're going to put it in. And, we'll worry about that later. But you don't ever come back to it. That's developing a poor mindset. It's commonly done. Some of you are looking at this going, why would I put bills in someone else's name? Okay, trust me. There are some people out there going, oh, my bill right now is in someone else's name. Phone bill, gas bill, electric bill, whatever it is. It's a small bill. You didn't go back and pay it, so therefore you cannot reopen. It's the same thing a lot of people do with checking accounts. If you look at the first video, and I say, mindsets of a broke person, or you look at video 2, in there it insinuates using your bank account. Mistakes, it was in the mistakes one, that's the second one. Mistakes that poor people make is that they do use their bank account as a check. So ultimately you end up paying for that. Right? You go on something called check systems, which is used by almost every major bank, which means you can't open a bank account. You see the pattern here? Because they're going to call, they're going to check, and they're going to say, well, you didn't pay your last debts. What you're basically saying to people is, I am irresponsible. You have a bill in someone else's name, it is irresponsible. And you're like, oh, come on. Stop it. And it's only because there is a whole group of people that get into debt and then go back and pay the debt. So people not faulting you for being in debt. That happens. But they do fault you for not going back 5 years later. You've been on check systems for 5 years. It's because you didn't go back and pay that debt even when you had the money. So I say this one as an important one because I don't want you to get in the habit of not paying your debts because you don't think it matters. And it becomes a lifestyle. So it goes into your mindset. It goes into the way that you're thinking about money. And an unhealthy thought about money, it means that you're going to stay where you are. The point is to move you past where you are into a better place, into financial freedom. And then from financial freedom, you can get to being rich, from being rich into getting wealthy. Because it's not going to help you if you have that mindset to move forward. You're not going to even get to financial freedom because you're going to make every 2 steps you make forward, you're going to make 4 or 5 back because you're going to have debts that you didn't pay that are going to catch up to you. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I got that, because that's really just a lifestyle. And I don't want you in that lifestyle anymore. What we're trying to do is to get you into the financial freedom first, depending on where you started. Maybe you're already financially free and you develop this habit. Whenever you develop it, it's terrible. Don't do it. Okay? So, being okay with no car. People. These are like real things that have actually happened. So I'm not making these things up because those of you that have always had a car, such as myself, could never imagine a person not having a car. Like, well, how are you getting around? And you're like, I'm taking the bus. I'm like, what? So you should have all these questions. So if you're in that category, I'm there with you. It used to shock me. It does not shock me anymore because I see now that people develop this as a lifestyle, that they just simply don't ever get a car. And you're like, so? I hear you. I can hear you out there. You're going to me like, so? Why are you, get out of my life. But I'm not trying to browbeat you or tell you how horrible you are or even tell you that you're wrong. I'm saying that mindset of not developing the thought process around what it takes to have to get a car is what I'm trying to stop you from doing. If you have millions, multi-millions in the bank and your portfolio is at the tip top and you don't have a car, but I don't know one person in all of my years of finances and businesses and everything else that doesn't have a car if you're in the mindset of getting one. It starts with your thought process, right? And that level of ambition that you need. And you can lie to yourself and say, well, not everybody has a car. Yeah, but everybody that doesn't have a car generally isn't financially free. They're not even at that level, let alone rich, let alone wealthy. So again, it goes back to mindset. And I'm trying to, really harp on this just because I know a lot of you are watching like, oh, okay, yeah, she's right. I actually don't have a car and I haven't had one for like 4 years. You know what I mean? So put it in perspective. And are there moments where you won't have one? Maybe. Maybe there's a time when you have to be saving for one. And therefore, a little bit of a bonus about a car. This is getting a little bit more into the technicals. But as advisory, I generally advise that if you can, you get a new car and keep it for 10 years. That is the best value you're going to get on something that depreciates. To buy it brand new and keep it for 10 years. Now, if you're going to be trading it in and getting upgrades, okay, that's probably not the best advice. But if you have the ability and the discipline to get a new car and to just keep it for 10 years, that's the best way to get that particular item that's a depreciating item to benefit you in some way. Okay? Another one is stop using check cashing. Now this term alone to some of you watching is like, what is a check? Like I see these, but I don't actually know what that is. You know what I mean? Or I've heard of this check cashing thing, But for those of you that never had to use it, right? You're like, what is a check cashing? Like, what is the purpose of check cashing? Is it an illegal check? You start making up stuff. The reality of the situation is most people that use check cashing is because they don't have a bank account. And so you pay an institution for your own money. This makes 0 sense. If the best case scenario, automatic bank debit for your check into the bank. That's it. If you don't have a bank account and it's not because you're not on check systems, and even now, even on that, you can still get like an online account. I don't care what kind of bank it is. Don't go to check cashing. This adds up. You're taking money out of your check every single time. Money that you earned. And if you're at that level where you're using check systems, you really did earn it. Like, you work hard. So don't give it away. I don't advise in any way, shape, or form that a person not have some sort of checking account. And there's ways around it if you've messed up in the past and you haven't had a chance to pay that bill back. There's institutions that will allow you to have a second chance as well. But go back and pay that bill, like I said, back to the first. But do not use check cashing. Don't go to the liquor store, wherever. There's different places to go to cash a check that you may have. Not advisable at all. That adds up. It's like a vice, really. When I speak about mistakes that people make and spending a lot of money on their vices, I mentioned it twice now. This is the third time. Check cashing is another vice. It's another way of just taking the money that you've earned and sort of giving it away to something that you don't need to give it away to, that you could actually apply that somewhere else. Okay? Monitor your food budget. Now, you can fact check on this, and I do want you to do research on most of the things, if not everything that I'm saying. Most poor people spend the majority of their money on food. It's like a vice, like smoking. You have to look at your food bill. You actually have to budget for your food bill. Now, this is an unheard of concept for some people, like budget, food bill. Why would I do that? And most of the time you will find that you eat out. Now, all of us, I don't care what financial level you are generally guilty of this. Generally. Some people have a chef, you don't have to worry about it, right? Because your chef's gonna cook whatever you need and, give you plates to go. If you cook for yourself, bravo, because that means you're probably eating out a lot less. But for those people that just didn't learn how to cook, don't want to know how to cook, have too many kids that want to cook, they're always on the go kind of, whatever your reason is, you're in college, I don't care what it is, most of your budget is going to eating out. If you budget your food, you will recognize this and stop wasting money, because everyone knows, and everybody may not know, but most people understand it's cheaper to eat it because you get more meals for what you're eating. Now you're like, what if I'm out, and this is, for someone that's maybe financially free, and they're like, and my friends are out and we're all eating, you're telling me not to eat? No, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you to monitor it. Now, if you don't budget at all, you flat out need to budget, and it needs to be in a budget. I don't care if you have 7 kids. All the more reason why you should budget your food bill, because most people make food budget a priority without budgeting it, even though it is a priority. They'll buy a bunch of groceries and then go out 5 times a week and act like that makes sense. It really doesn't. Why did you buy a bunch of groceries if you're only going to eat out every day? Or 2 of your 3 meals are out every day, and then you bought a bunch of breakfast stuff, so you eat breakfast stuff, or something variation of this lack of budgeting. And it really goes back to a lack of budgeting. I'm going to say that every video probably that you need to understand that budgeting is what keeps you rich, wealthy, broke. Not, budgeting or lack of budgeting keeps you one of those things. But it will not move you forward because you will not know what you have. You will not know where your money's going. You will continue to live paycheck to paycheck. And if that paycheck is lost, you will just flat out be broke and broken. So I'm trying to prevent that by telling you, I don't care if you get paid $800 every 2 weeks. I really don't get $400 every 2 weeks. 200. I don't care if you're on unemployment. Budget it. I promise this. It will save you. I promise this. It will take you out of the situation that you're in. And I repeat that multiple times every video because it's really something that I have to drill into even my clients. Even when I do businesses, you still have people in a business that are like, I don't really know what I have. And I'm like, well, you don't know what you have at your own company? This is why it's failing. Like, or you don't know what you have at your own company? I mean, this makes no sense. Like, you have to know in order to see where your money should go in case of a crisis. I'm sure a lot of people in COVID-19, they were budgeting their businesses, but they needed to readjust because what they were used to suddenly changed. If you owned a restaurant, obviously you lost a lot of income if you didn't close down completely. Without a budget, and you're just kind of spending things, or an awareness of a budget so you know how to guide your financial staff, you're going to go under even before anything like this happens, meaning the pandemic. Okay? So I keep emphasizing that. But do budget your food. Just budget it. You know, if you spend $10 a day for lunch, even during the pandemic, maybe you're just ordering. And even worse, because now they're putting delivery charge on there, another 10. What are you actually spending a week? And I encourage you to do that math, even if you're not doing that, so you can see how these things add up, okay? Another one is paying your bills for 30 days. Do not pay your bills on time. You're like, okay, wait a minute. Hold on, Alex. You're telling me not to pay my bills on time? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Okay, what? You telling me to be late? No. I'm telling you to be early. You should go into any person that is renting, a renter, okay? You do not own, you're not paying a mortgage. You don't have the extra time to pay your bill like a person that owns their property outright, or a person that is paying a mortgage, and you're just renting. You could get kicked out at any time. You need to go into there paying 60 days. Now, what, you're like, why would I do that? I mean, maybe I need to save, I need to buy furniture. And no, you don't. You need to pay, I'm yelling at you. You need to pay, first of all, realistically speaking, a renter that is financially free pays like whatever the lease is. I can tell you how many times I've gone into an apartment building and paid 6 months or whatever the lease was, a year or whatever the lease was, so that you don't have to pay that every time. But we're starting slower, so maybe you don't have that. I mean, that's perfectly understandable. You're like, I'm not doing that. I don't have, that much money. I've barely got a place to live. Okay, that's fine. But you go in trying to pay every bill 60 days. Why? Because if you're renting, you probably have a job. You're probably relying on that job, and that job is probably helping you rely on your paycheck. If you are in that situation and you abruptly lose your job for some reason, it gives you 30 days to find something else, if not more. You see, it's another way of financial planning. You don't have the resources or finances to plan a year, which would be optimal. But on your way working there, bite the bullet once. Remember, I told you you're going to have to make sacrifices at first, but these are going to be very quick sacrifices that you're going to realize are going to benefit you. And pay another rent. So like they say, deposit plus first months. Don't even go in with that mindset. Go in there with deposit plus the first 2 months. If you do that, it will change which apartment you choose because many people choose live above their means. Now I'm talking to the above their means people. For those of you that live above your means, have a tendency to live in 30 days. So you're like, I can afford this rent. I've got this job. and you pay every month. Faithfully. I mean, you probably got a really good job. I mean, you could be making, 75,000 or more a year, and you're like, hey, this is great. I'm fine. I'm gonna save for a house. Blah blah blah. Whatever you're doing. So you pay your rent every month, on time. But then you lose your job. Not only do you have to find another job before 30 days, but you also have to come up with that rent. Now, realistically, you probably have a severance of some sort. Or if you just got fired, you're going to be hoping your unemployment check comes in a little faster. And if you're real smart and financially free, you probably have a savings. Either way, you don't want to have to dip into that too soon because you don't know how long it's going to take you to find another job. Safeguard yourself by being ahead, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many people that little bit of advice has actually saved because they did lose their job. And some of them got straight fired. So some of them got abruptly lost their job for some reason or another. And unemployment didn't back then start right away, like, during the pandemic. You had to wait 2 weeks or so. So don't rely on, not giving yourself breathing room, right? Don't waste a lot of your extra money. I used as the example, one of the best examples, because most of the people that I talked to did something crazy with their, with the check that they gave you for a stimulus check. I'm like, did you pay your rent? Well, my rent's already paid. Yeah, but is it paid for next month? Well, I still have a job. No, pay your rent. Pay it. Pay your gas and electric or whatever, pay on it at least so that you're not owing a whole month's rent. You can at least pay half. I don't know whatever your rent is. I like to say average rent is $2,000, but I come from, this is LA, so it's probably less for most people in other areas of the country. But, you pay on it, as best you can so that you're not paying the whole thing if something happens and an emergency happens. So that is really my point with that. Now, another thing is let's say you're financially free. I want to talk to you people. You guys are financially free. You have a nice job. You've been there a couple years. You're pretty stable. And you're like, I want to invest some stuff. And you're like, okay, fine. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what not to do. Because this is stuff for people that once they built a portfolio, I can take you from there. But let's say you're building it. Do not invest in collectibles. This sounds like it makes sense, right? Oh, let me get this great painting. I've got an extra $10,000. Let me throw this $10,000. It's only $10,000. I'm good. It's probably going to be better in value or whatever. They can get up to $100,000. And you invest in this, which is probably a considerable chunk of your money if you're still depending upon working. And it's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. So you're not going to sell that in an emergency. It's not a good investment for you. It's a good investment down the line if I have time. If I know astute art collectors that I can sell this to at a moment's notice that have been looking at this painting for a moment or so. But it is not if I am starting to invest for the first time. I have limited investment resources. I am financially free, but I don't want to have to start over. If something happens, you cannot sell a collectible quickly. It does not happen. I mean, unless you have a buyer already. But I'm assuming if you're starting, you probably don't know a lot of people willing to purchase whatever it is that you buy, no matter how much it's worth. Do you understand? So I don't think that that's a good investment for somebody that's financially free. For those of you that are not financially free, investing right now is going to be investing in how many months you can survive without. Don't think about investing at this particular point. You need to get enough behind you. Finish the debts that you owe and move forward that way instead of actually starting to invest. So there is a time for investment, and there's a time to invest in collectibles. It is not at those stages that I'm talking about now, and especially if you're living above your means. Do not go out and buy collectibles. Do not do it. You can do what you want, but I highly recommend you not doing it. It's just too much time, and it is based on what the person is willing to pay for. That's how much value it is. Now, it can be appraised at a certain value, but that doesn't mean that people are going to pay that for. Okay, so this is going to be awkward coming from a past broker. Don't tell anybody. In the interim for precious metals. But if you are starting out investing, do not buy precious metals. Don't do it. I can't tell you how many times somebody has scraped together, or they got it, 50,000 or 20,000 or something, whatever. Some people even more than that. So I've seen people invest like $1 million in precious metals. Okay, fine. Now, why am I telling you not to invest in precious metals? You're like, what? It is a hedge, for those of you that know the terminology, or you're like, it is a way to preserve. It is a preservation investment. This is why somebody like in the past Warren Buffett would say, don't buy precious metals, it's a terrible investment. It's for two reasons. Now, I'm not saying don't ever buy precious metals. I'm saying at certain stages, if you are not financially free, if you are financially free, and if you are just rich but not wealthy, it's not a good investment for you. It's not a good investment because it's a preservation, right? It preserves your wealth. It doesn't necessarily grow it in the next. For everything that you grow in precious metals, you also lose in precious metals. So you have to, and it's always recommended that you don't even touch it for 3 years. So if you're scraping together whatever inheritance, you got a little $50,000 inheritance, or you got your $25,000 inheritance, because we don't really take, some people take them less than that, but for most part, if you're going to a real metals company, they're not going to take anything lower than 25 because they feel like they're taking your last. And you invested in precious metals, and you go back to working. First of all, you're not going to see it again for at least 3 years. Every metals broker will tell you not to take that out. And to resell, it's always going to be a problem. Even if you sell it back to the company that you bought it from, well, which is generally what most people do. It's always going to be a challenge, I'll say it that way. It is not an investment for someone that is building a portfolio. It is an investment and for someone that just has a portfolio, it's super strong, and they're able to take some risk in that portfolio. They might do 10% or so, maybe 15 into precious metals. It's considered a risky investment, but not risky maybe necessarily if your portfolio is already strong and you just want some precious metals. You just decided, I want to preserve in case the dollar just drops to the peso, that I am still worth at least $2 million at least. I'm going to put these in precious metals because I can use these anywhere. You can use them all over the world. That's how you're using them. You're using them to maintain your value, which makes zero sense for a person that doesn't have value yet. You're not maintaining your wealth. You're trying to build wealth. You can't build wealth in something that's designed really to maintain your wealth. And so that's a little secret that precious metal brokers won't tell you because they don't want you to think that you're saying it's a bad investment. But it isn't. It isn't. But it is at a certain level a bad investment. So it really depends on where you are. And the people that we're talking that are not financially free, the people that are rich but not wealthy, the people that are sort of living above their means, I don't recommend precious metals. I just don't. I just think that you can wait until you're in a place where your portfolio is strong enough. Portfolio meaning money that's making money for you even while you're sleeping. Is strong enough to be able to preserve what you have, if that makes sense. Okay, so real estate. Okay, so I mentioned this in the last video because many people go, oh, real estate. I'm financially free. Real estate, that's it. I'm going out and buying properties. Okay, so first of all, this concept will not make sense if depending upon where you're buying properties. Let's just start with that. Depending upon whether or not you can maintain the property, and depending on whether or not you can afford the rent if you don't have a renter. If you don't plan on having a renter, then resale becomes an issue, and resale will become an issue, period. I mean, if I buy a house in the middle of, a crime-ridden area, I used this example before, but I want to drive the point home, reselling that is going to be it's going to be extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. It's not saying that it can't be done, but you may have to even sell it at less than what you purchased it at. It's a heavily crime-ridden area, you're not going to get a purchaser, which means you have to step it up. You have to be able to purchase in an area that's desirable. You have to be able to cover the rent if the renter is not there, if you decide to rent. And you have to be able to resell it at or ideally above, right? It means the property value of the area has to be going up as well. You can't just have this beautiful house in the middle of a crime-ridden area. It's just not a good investment, and I see a lot of people wasting money that way. Oh, I have real estate. Okay, where's your real estate at? It's in the middle of blah, blah, blah. And I look at the area, and I'm like, the crime rate is sky high in this area. What do you plan on doing with this property? Oh, I'm going to resell it. Well, no, not really. Not for what you're paying for. No, you're not. So I'm saying that's not a good investment. Let's see. Digital currency. This is another one I get many arguments on. People will argue me down about Byte, or whatever the digital currency is. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's a bad investment depending upon where you're at. You will find in most cases, even if you have a lot of money to burn, it is not a good investment long term. It just isn't. You don't want to just sit your money in digital currency. It's not that type of investment. And when people that are not used to investing think of investing, they're thinking long term. They're not thinking, get your money out, get it in, get what you're going to make, and they're thinking of it as a gambling casino type thing. They're thinking of it as, I'm just going to let my money stay in. And I'm not denying that people have made a lot of money in biotech. Or digital currency. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility. People made a lot of money. But you have to be a relatively astute investor to even know when to get your money out of there. Because it's going to rise and fall rather rapidly. So that's why it's not recommended. It's the time span from which this currency will rise and fall. Also, it is a good currency for hacking. For people that don't have good intentions. It's not live, right? It's digital. Which does open you up for other problems that you wouldn't have if you're using paper money in a bank, quote unquote. So think about it. Yes, it makes money. Yes, you make it quickly, but also even then you have to be somewhat astute enough to know when to get your money out of it, to transfer it to something else. So you wouldn't want to look at that as a long-term investment. And then, of course, anything that's easy money is generally probably not the best idea if you don't have money to lose. So don't do it. Don't do it if you're not, almost close to financial wealth. You might be able to get away with it if you're rich, depending on how rich you are. But I would reserve that if you're wealthy to that. And not even they invest when you ask. They will really go into precious metals instead. Okay, so we have some questions. People did ask. It says, is property a good idea to invest in? Well, I did answer that question earlier. I'm sorry, I just read your question. But it depends. It depends on where you're at. It depends on where you're getting your money from and then how much of it you have. I did talk about the area and all that stuff. So it depends. And the answer I would say if you're asking that question is probably no, because you have not done enough research. So I wouldn't recommend that you just go out and invest in something. What do I do if I am older and haven't started planning yet? By planning, I'm assuming you mean financial planning. If you're older, first of all, it's never too late to start. That sounds really corny, but the truth of the matter is. But you're going to start basically by figuring out where you are and where you want to go. If you look at my first two videos, I do talk about, I used an analogy in one of the videos about driving in your car and just having to stop where you are. So you have to plan. I mean, the key in financial planning is that it is a plan. You don't just go into retirement and just retire. You have to be planning on how you want to retire. So I would say start there. It doesn't matter how old you are. It sounds like I don't know how old you are, but it sounds like you might be coming up into sort of retirement age, but you're not there yet. So figure out how you want to retire, because there is different levels of retirement, right? Some people retire and they're still working because they have to, right? The man that did my taxes one year was like 75 and he was still working. Not because he wanted to, he told me, I'm not working because I want to, I'm working because I didn't plan. So financial planning, the key to that is know that it's planning. So anything that you're planning, you have to know where you're going and then proceed to figure out how to get there. So start with that. Say, I want to, be rich. Well, first of all, define what that is, and second of all, how do you get yourself there? You can do that at any age. It's just going to take you longer, and you're going to be older. But having the plan is really going to help you, because think of it this way: if you don't do anything, you're going to be right where you are by the time you retire. And I don't know how old you are, but the thing is to just create the plan by knowing how you want to retire. So start with that. Times are hard, having trouble. I believe that's saving. What can I do? I don't know where you are financially. You didn't actually express that, but I'm assuming if you're asking that you're having trouble saving, that you have to maybe think about your relationship with money. And when you say you're having trouble saving, that stands out to me as a person that has a lot of vices. Multiples. That you are probably spending quite a bit of money on. You might be a shopper, you might be a shopper smoker / I like to eat out. You might be a shopper / smoker, like to eat out / don't have a savings account. I mean, there's a multitude of things that could be happening in this question. So the fact that you're saying you're having trouble saving, the terms that you chose to use makes me feel like you were basically saying that you're a vice person. You spend and on things that you shouldn't be spending on. And that would indicate to me also that you probably don't budget. Because if you budget out savings, it wouldn't matter what you were spending. You would have that designated amount for budgeting. So in order to answer your question, I would say the best thing for you is to budget. Literally, start with that. And again, it doesn't matter I don't care if you make $400 a month, budget it. And put a place for entertainment, for probably where the majority of your expenses are going. Living expenses, you sound like you could be living above your means, and then a savings. And I don't really care if it's $25. That's still $300 a year. You start with that. And you do that every time you get paid. Don't do it monthly, because it sounds like you need a little more discipline than that. So every time you get paid, boom, you budget. And don't spend before you get there. So that would be my advice for your question. And the final question is the current stock market rally a good chance to boost my nest egg? Okay, so the terms, you use nest egg, which means you're probably financially free. Current stock market rally, you use the word rally, so you're probably pretty familiar with investing, which means you probably have somewhat of a portfolio and you're trying to figure out how to diversify it. I can say that to this particular person because it sounds like they're an investor already, just because of the terms that you used. So just in layman's terms, I'm basically saying he has money put away that's making money for him. He wants to find another way to make more money for himself while he's sleeping. Remember, a portfolio is nothing more than places to put your money that make money for you. It's just in its simplest terminology. He's saying rally. He's saying, that is this a good time to invest, and what should I invest in, is basically what he's asking. He said nest egg, which means it's savings, right? He's basically saying, I've saved. Is it because this is a good time to invest? Is it a good time to invest or not to invest? Well, my advice to you when you say, rally, which means the stock market is up, right? You're basically assuming that I don't know when you wrote this question, but I'm assuming that it was up when you were looking at it, and that there were good returns and whatnot. The reality of the situation is I wouldn't buy when it's doing well. This sounds terrible. Okay, please do not take this advice if you do not agree with what I'm saying. I do not want to be, telling you that I'm giving you financial advice and I haven't seen your nest egg. Okay, so I give a word of caution. I do not know what you have. I'm giving general recommendation only because I don't know what you have. I'm only guessing based on your question. Ideally, you want to buy when the market is not doing well because it's cheaper, right? Buy something on sale. For those of you just laymanize it. In a realistic way, you want to buy stuff on sale because you're getting the same quality of something, but you're just getting it at a cheaper rate. So if all of what I'm assuming is correct and in a general sense, I'm talking when the time to invest is, it is not usually when the market is doing well. It's usually on the down of the market, and then you're able to get it at a quote unquote discount, right? I'm saying it just in layman's terms. You just want to, you want to get it at a better rate, whatever you're looking at buying. I don't even know what you're looking at buying, so I can't even answer that question. But, is there a good time is there ever a good time to invest or to not invest? It depends on what you're trying to buy, right? Or invest in. So that's a very broad question, so I'm giving you a broad answer because it's a broad question. I don't have your specifics, so I can only say broadly speaking, I don't know because I don't know enough about your situation in order to answer that. But I gave you a pretty good general answer. All right, so I hope some of this is helping. I hope even just hearing some of the terms just a little bit here and there and me trying to break them down into just basic simplicity because I don't want you to be confused at any level. Keep your questions coming in. I love them. I love answering your questions. And then, like I said, if you want something more specific, I probably would, send it to you. But general questions like this are great. Any question is great. I will probably answer all of them publicly because I feel like if you have a question, somebody else also has a question. So make sure you like, comment, leaving a question, subscribe. Subscriptions are always good. Thank you for doing that. But also make sure you hit the bell because like I said, we do different shows. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.